Hello there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. Superfly Comics Guy here today to talk to you about one of my favorite Batman stories, presented in what is probably the best possible format for you to read it in, Absolute Batman Court of Owls. I'll be taking you through the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip through of the story where I can tell you a bit about why exactly I like this story so much. So, feel free to stick around. If you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it. And please feel free to chime in the comments with your own thoughts as well. But with that out of the way, let's dive into this. Alright, so Absolute Court of Owls. If you're not familiar with the Absolute format, this is basically DC's flagship format. It's even bigger than an omnibus in terms of dimensions, but it's reserved typically for the creme de la creme stories. So really your big name stories like Watchmen or Long Halloween or Batman Hush, and Court of Owls here, for example. Those big stories will typically be given an absolute format treatment. So here we have a very, very creepy hybrid image of Batman and I guess kind of a Court of Owls Talon here by Greg Capullo. Here's what the spine looks like. And let me show you the back here. Very, very nice. So this collects Batman, the New 52 series 1 through 11, and also a bonus script page. This particular edition I have is the older edition, but there is also a 2023 reprint that's coming out at the end of this year. So maybe this will help you decide as well whether you want to pick that up. Do note that this older edition retailed for about 100 US, 113 Canadian at the time, but that 2023 reprint is going to be priced at 125 US, 163 Canadian, so a little bit more expensive. Under the slipcase, we have even more gorgeous Greg Capullo art. Here is the spine for those curious, and the back. Do note that this material does tend to leave marks quite easily, so you'll have to be careful while you're handling it. Take good care of it. But let's dive a bit into the story, see what awaits us there. All right, so Absolute Court of Owls. Got some lovely bookend pages here and a very nice ribbon bookmark that's pretty commonly found in these Absolute editions, which is always nice to be able to easily mark your place as you're reading. Although, to be honest, you might not even need to with this book. You'll probably just blaze right through it. It's a real page turner. We do have an introduction here by Snyder, talking a bit about how this story started, but I'll touch on this in a bit. Now, you might remember in my Batman by Snyder and Greg Capullo Omnibus Volume 1 review, I've already touched on this series, but I figured we'd go a little bit more in-depth here. So this time period, this is right around the New 52 period of DC Comics. Now, for anyone not familiar with that, all you need to know is that the New 52 was this period around the early 2010s where DC sort of rebooted their universe and reintroduced a whole bunch of series, starting at number 1 again. So a lot of characters sort of got revamped, like Aquaman, for example, Robin. Batman didn't really change that much. What they kind of did with Batman is they sort of just de-aged him a little bit and condensed his history. So everything that like still happened in the past, they're treating as canon, but within a smaller time frame, which doesn't really make sense all the time, but it's best if you don't think about it too much. But anyway, yeah, Snyder. I remember watching an interview one time, and he touches on this in that introduction I mentioned, where how he got the idea for the Court of Owls. He was walking around one of his home cities. It might have been actually just New York. He was walking around Times Square or something, and he was realizing how he didn't really recognize the city that he had grown up in or been to before. It's like old back alleys and rundown storefronts were suddenly changed into fancy new stores or apartments or whatever. And he's like, wow, I don't really recognize this. So he kind of describes it as you only ever know your own city the way it exists now, but you don't know like the years and years of history that's gone, that it's been through. Your city is constantly evolving, Apartments change hands every day. New parts of the city are renovated, changed into something else, and bit by bit, it sort of grows over time. So his idea was, hey, why don't I apply that concept to Batman? There's no possible way Batman can know the centuries and centuries of Gotham's history. He might think he does, but surely there's got to be some sort of secrets he's not aware of. And that's kind of where the Court of Owls comes in. They're this sort of urban legend in Gotham, this secret society that's had a hand, supposedly, in Gotham's history and development, dating back centuries. Honestly, the best way to describe them is kind of like Gotham's Illuminati, if you will. Now, of course, Batman had investigated them at one point prior, but he didn't really find anything. He was convinced after that, they don't exist. That's exactly what they are, just an urban legend. But following a string of mysterious disappearances and murders, it becomes more and more apparent and more difficult for Batman to deny their existence, and he ends up having to pay the price for his ignorance. And I just think that idea is fascinating. It's so cool to see Batman get something wrong, to miss something. It actually reminds me of a quote from the Joker in Batman Arkham City.
So how do you keep a secret from the world's greatest detective? Well, do you know? It's easy. You stick it right in front of him, right under his long, pointy nose, and wait.
And that's exactly right. That's one of Batman's biggest weaknesses, his confidence. But that's what I think makes him interesting. An interesting hero is not someone who gets things right all of the time. Most often, what defines an interesting hero is what they do when they get something wrong, when they lose. And you'll see that here. No spoilers, of course, but you'll see what I mean. And man, the Greg Capullo art in here, this is probably the biggest reason why you'll want to spring for this absolute format. Because, man, is it spectacular. He's so good at depicting action, really great set pieces, really great spread pages. Although, I will say, what I don't like is sometimes the art, sometimes even when he's drawing human faces, they can seem a little flat, at least to me, and some of the characters can be drawn a little samey. In particular, I remember there's this one sequence towards the beginning of the story where Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, Damian Wayne, they're all attending this sort of formal party or whatever, and they're all wearing like the same tuxedo look. And honestly, they're drawn really similarly. Or even when Bruce is talking to this one guy, I think he was like a politician or something, even those two are drawn really similar. So that part kind of irks me a little bit. But speaking of fantastic art, let me take you through some of the extras in here, because you do get quite a few very nice variants in here. A lot of these you'll actually also find in the omnibus I mentioned, the Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo Batman Omnibus Volume 1, that I've done a review on if you're curious to see my thoughts on those other stories, not just Court of Owls. But yeah, really spectacular. It really is an experience when you're flipping through one of these absolute editions, just to be able to marvel at all of the glorious art in here. But you also do get character designs and sketches, and these also were found in the omnibus, which you can check out. But what you didn't get in the omnibus, from what I can remember, is this script, this behind the scenes of Batman #1, the first issue in this story. You get the full sort of work in progress sketches and the original script, so that's really cool to see. Now, as far as build quality, you do get 384 pages in this Absolute Edition. There's what the eye looks like. Very nice, albeit mine is starting to come apart a little bit from that tail piece there. But no big deal. Oddly enough, though, the 2023 edition is listed at 360 pages, which is 24 less than this. So I'm trying to think of what they could possibly cut from this. Maybe that's script at the end? I'm not sure. But yeah, these are really, really good quality. The pages are fantastic. Rarely do you get gutter loss. If you do, it'll be super minimal. Like there, you can see a spread panel. You're pretty much not losing anything. It's really, really nice. And that ribbon bookmark that you get is just a really nice bonus as you're reading through. But just to offer some closing thoughts here, yeah, this is one of my favorite Batman stories, mainly because of how it highlights one of his biggest weaknesses, because not much gets by Batman without him knowing about it, right? So when something does sneak past him, it's just really interesting to see the impact of that and how he adapts to the situation, because let's face it, what good is your hero if he doesn't have a meaningful conflict to push them forward? It's super easy to get into for beginners because that was kind of the whole idea of the New 52. And if you can spring for it, the Absolute Edition really is the best way to enjoy it. But if not, this story has been collected in so many other formats, in omnibus, trades, standard hardcovers, maybe even a deluxe edition, although I'm not entirely certain about that one. But for me, the absolute format is what I go for when it's a story I really, really like, that really sticks out to me, it's really memorable, or it's like the artwork is fantastic or whatever. Otherwise, I go for the omnibus. But anyway, that's been my review of the Absolute Edition for Batman Court of Owls. Let me know what you thought about the story or the review. Do you have a favorite Absolute Edition, or what are some of your favorite Batman stories? Let me know down below, but thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to catch you in another video real soon, so you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.